I've always known my brother Evan was a showman, the kind of guy who can't let a moment pass without making it about him. So when he invited the whole family to his brand new ultra-modern house in Boulder for a celebratory dinner, I should have known it wasn't just about granite countertops and open floor plans. But I came anyway. I showed up with a bottle of wine, a decent shirt, and the quiet ache of grief still stuck in my chest. It had only been 4 days since Grandpa passed. 4 days. And now here we were, toasting new beginnings like we hadn't just buried the man who meant more to me than anyone else in this family. Evan stood in the center of the room, all designer smiles and crisp linen. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, lifting his overpriced champagne flute. Everyone turned to him, as they always did. To fresh starts, new chapters, and most importantly, he paused, that stupid dramatic pause he'd perfected since middle school. To Grandpa, may he rest in peace. A silence fell. That part, at least, I respected. I raised my glass too, letting the bubbly tickle my throat and the ache settle in deeper. I missed him, his voice, his laugh, the way he always called me kiddo, even though I'm pushing 30. That cabin by the lake, the one he cherished more than anything, that place was our sanctuary. And then Evan dropped the bomb. "I have something to share," he said, setting his glass down and pulling a crumpled envelope from his pocket like he was about to unveil a magic trick. "Before he passed, Grandpa gave me this letter. He wanted me to have the lake house." I stopped breathing. The room filled with a mix of gasps and murmurs. My parents looked stunned, though my dad already had that proud, puffed-up look he reserved for Evan's big wins. My cousin Morgan shot me a confused glance from across the room, her brows practically touching her hairline. I could feel the blood draining from my face. That couldn't be right. That wasn't right. Because 3 weeks ago, Grandpa had handed me a box, an old cedar cigar box. He'd looked at me with those fading but still sharp blue eyes and said, "Don't open this until the moment feels wrong. You'll know when that is." I hadn't opened it, not yet. But now, Evan was holding up some letter with a smug little smirk, claiming Grandpa had entrusted him with the vacation home. He said I'd be the one to carry on the family tradition. Evan read aloud, his voice syrupy and dramatic. The cabin always belonged in the hands of someone who could elevate it. Elevate it? I nearly choked on my drink. Evan had been to the cabin twice in 5 years, and both times he bitched about the lack of Wi-Fi and the rustic furniture. Meanwhile, I'd been driving up every weekend, mowing the grass, cleaning the gutters, cooking meals with Grandpa, listening to his stories from the Korean War. That cabin was ours, mine and Grandpa's. He never said it, but I felt it in the way he handed me that box. There was no ceremony, no grand announcement, just trust. Now Evan was standing in front of our entire family, trying to rewrite that truth with a forged pen and an audience. I needed to see that letter. I needed to compare the handwriting, but I also needed to get out of there before I exploded. I stood up, forcing a smile so tight it felt like my face might crack. "Hey, I just got a work thing. Emergency client call. I'll be back." My cousin Morgan shot me a knowing look. She mouthed, "You good?" I nodded, lying with my eyes. I ducked down the hallway and slipped out through the laundry room. As soon as I hit the driveway, I started running. The second I got to my apartment, I went straight for my closet, pulled down the cigar box from the top shelf where I'd stashed it like it was cursed. My hands shook as I opened the lid. Inside, a folded document, a sealed letter with my name on it, and one brass key. The key to Grandpa's roll-top desk at the cabin. The document was notarized, dated 6 months ago. It read, "This deed certifies that ownership of the lakeside property, located at 92 Hollow Pine Drive, has been transferred from Harold M. Colburn to his granddaughter, Sadie Colburn. My name, my property, he had given it to me, not Evan, not the estate, not anyone else. I unfolded the letter next. Grandpa's handwriting was unmistakable, shaky, crooked, with his signature long dashes and crossouts. Sadie, it began, I'm giving you the cabin now, not through the will. I want there to be no confusion when I'm gone. You're the one who truly loved this place, who made it home. I know Evan might try something. That's why I'm giving you this box and this key. The lawyer has a copy too. It's yours, kiddo. Don't let anyone steal it. I sat on the floor, the letter in my lap, the weight of his trust like an anvil on my chest. Evan knew. That smug look? That wasn't surprise. It was calculation. He'd gone to the lawyer, learned the truth, and spun a lie before the rest of us could hear it officially. He'd tried to take the one thing Grandpa left to me. I checked the time. The party would still be winding down. Probably just family left. I didn't care. I wasn't letting this lie live a second longer than it already had. I drove back to Evan's place with the cigar box in the passenger seat like it was made of gold and glass. Fragile, but worth everything. The streetlights passed in a blur. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than they should have. My heart wasn't just racing. It was pounding like it was trying to punch through my chest. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw accusations like daggers. I was going to do exactly what Grandpa would have done. Let the truth speak louder than the performance. When I pulled up a block from Evan's house, I texted Morgan. Me. Still people there? Morgan. Just family. Everyone else left after dinner. You coming back? Me. Yeah, don't say anything yet. Morgan. You okay? Me. I'm about to be. I tucked the box under my arm, took a deep breath, and walked toward the front door like I was marching into a courtroom. Evan answered when I knocked. His face flickered between surprise and annoyance. Work emergency over already? He said, leaning on the doorframe like he was hosting a late-night game show. We need to talk, I said, walking past him before he could pretend he had the moral high ground. His confidence slipped the second he saw what I was holding. That cigar box. Everyone was still gathered in the living room. My parents sitting on the leather couch. Morgan in the armchair, arms crossed. Evan's girlfriend, Lexi, was standing by the kitchen counter, her phone in hand, but her attention on me the second I walked in. My mom smiled like nothing had happened. Sadie, we were just talking about Evan's wonderful news. Can you believe it? Grandpa left him the... I know what he said. I cut in, setting the box on the coffee table. That's what I'm here to talk about. Evan moved closer. What's that? You know what it is, I said. Grandpa gave this to me 3 weeks ago. He told me not to open it until the moment felt wrong. I opened the lid slowly, deliberately. Tonight was that moment. No one said a word as I unfolded the deed. I placed it on the table. Then Grandpa's letter. Then the key. 6 months ago, Grandpa transferred full ownership of the cabin to me. It's legally mine. It's not part of his will or estate. The silence that followed hit harder than any scream. My dad leaned forward, picking up the deed. This is notarized, he said, scanning the seal, the date. It's legit. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. Lexi took a step back. Morgan gave me a subtle nod. Get him. I turned to Evan, locking eyes with him. So, want to tell everyone what's really going on? Or should I? He stood there frozen. His usual smugness drained out of him like someone had pulled the plug on his ego. No, that's not possible. I have Grandpa's letter. He gave me the cabin. Let's see it. My dad handed me Evan's letter. I laid it side by side with Grandpa's real one. It was a joke. Anyone who knew Grandpa could see the difference. The fake one was smooth, too perfect. Not a single sign of the arthritis that turned his handwriting into a shaky scrawl in his last months. The signature? It might as well have been printed from Google Images. My mom stared at the 2 letters. Her eyes welled up. "Evan," she said softly, "did you forge this?" His silence was deafening. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something I never expected to see on my brother's face. Fear. "You don't understand," he muttered. "It's not fair. You always got everything. Grandpa he always loved you more." "This isn't about favorites," I snapped. "This is about the truth." "I saw the deed," he admitted suddenly. "Last week, I stopped by the lawyer's office and overheard something about the cabin already being handled. I figured it had to be you, so I made the letter." Lexi dropped her glass. It didn't break, but the sound was loud enough to jolt the room. "You lied to everyone," she said, her voice shaking. "I just wanted something," Evan shouted. "Something that mattered to him, that connected me to him. But it was always you. You and that stupid lake house. You were the golden grandchild." I took a breath. My fingers clenched the edge of the table. "You could have had that connection. You just never showed up." He sank into the armchair. The fight was gone. "You win," he mumbled. "This isn't a contest," I said. "But yeah, you lost. And not just the cabin." Everyone was quiet. No one looked him in the eye. Then I remembered something. "There's something else," I said, reaching back into the box. I pulled out the second sealed letter. The one with Evan's name on it. He looked up, confused. "What's that?" "A letter from Grandpa. For you." I handed it over. He stared at it like it might burn him. Then slowly, he opened it. His eyes moved across the page, his mouth twitching. At first, he looked skeptical, then surprised, then small, really, truly small, like a little boy lost in a place he didn't understand. "What does it say?" my mom asked gently. Evan swallowed. Hard. He handed the letter to her and whispered, "Read it." She took it and began, her voice trembling slightly. "Evan, if you're reading this, it means Sadie opened the box, and something's gone wrong. I hope that's not the case, but I planned for it because I know my family. I know you. You've always wanted approval, but in all the wrong places. You chased it instead of building it. The cabin wasn't yours to inherit, not because I didn't love you, but because you never truly wanted it. Not the way Sadie did. I've enclosed a check for $30,000. Use it to build something that matters to you. Not to impress others. Not to prove anything. Just something that feels right. Maybe it's that studio you talked about. Maybe it's something new entirely. You don't need a cabin to have purpose. You just need to show up for yourself and for others. Love, Grandpa." When she finished, no one said anything. Evan held the check in both hands like it was made of ice. "He still gave me something," he whispered. "Even after because he believed you could be better," I said. "Not because you deserved it, but because he hoped you might grow." He looked at me. "I'm sorry, Sadie. I messed up." "Yeah," I said, not sugarcoating it. "You really did. But I was done being angry, for now." "There's still time to do the right thing," I added. "You've got your own shot now. Don't waste it." Lexi looked at him, but didn't speak. She just walked to the door, paused, and left. The rest of us didn't stop her. I closed the cigar box slowly and carefully, then picked it up and stood. "Grandpa was right about one thing," I said to the room. The cabin didn't need to be part of a will to be protected. He already made sure of that. Then I looked at Evan one more time. And he was right about you too. The next morning, I drove up to the lake house. The road hadn't changed. Still winding, still quiet, still that perfect mix of pine and sunlight streaking through the windshield like nature's own spotlight. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't need it. My head was already full of thoughts, of Grandpa, of Evan, of what that night had revealed about all of us. I had the deed tucked in the glove compartment, not because I didn't trust the paper, but because it felt sacred. Like proof that the bond I had with Grandpa wasn't just emotional. It was real, legal, concrete. I pulled up to the cabin just after sunrise. The lake was still, glassy, not even a breeze to disturb the reflection of the trees or the ghost of memories hanging in the air. The gravel crunched under my boots as I stepped out and walked toward the porch. There it was. Grandpa's rocking chair. I half expected to see him in it, hat tilted over his eyes, thermos of black coffee in his hand, muttering something about the fishing being better before all the tourists showed up. Instead, there was just me. I unlocked the door with the brass key, still stuck a little, same as always. Grandpa said the lock was temperamental, like a cranky old man who needed just the right jiggle to open up. Maybe he was describing himself in his own way. Inside, everything was just as he left it. The books were still stacked by the fireplace. The smell of pine and old pipe tobacco still lingered in the air like a stubborn ghost. His flannel jacket still hung on the hook by the door. I stood there in the middle of the living room, letting the stillness settle over me. This place wasn't mine just because of the paperwork. It was mine because every board, every nail, every creaky floorboard was tied to a memory. The time I broke the screen door and Grandpa taught me how to fix it instead of scolding me. The late nights we played gin rummy by candlelight when the power went out. The morning we watched the sun rise from the dock in total silence, like we were both holding our breath for the world to start again. I dropped my bag on the couch and made a cup of coffee using Grandpa's ancient percolator. No fancy French press. No Keurig. Just hot, bitter coffee that tasted like tradition. I took it out to the porch and sat in the rocker. I let it creak under my weight. Let the breeze finally pick up. Let the memories roll in without fighting them. That's when I noticed it. A small photo album sitting on the little table next to the chair. I hadn't put it there. I opened it slowly. Inside were pictures. Dozens of them. Some I'd seen before. Me and Grandpa on the dock, both soaked after I tipped the canoe. Us building a snowman in the yard one Christmas. Him laughing, head thrown back, at something I'd said during dinner. But then came others. Photos of Evan. Him as a kid, covered in mud from the lake. His high school graduation. A screenshot from a video call Grandpa must have taken. Evan holding up his first paycheck from a real job, grinning. Grandpa kept those too. I flipped to the back of the album. Tucked behind the last page was a note, written in that same crooked scrawl. Even when we don't show up the way we should, it doesn't mean we stop mattering. I kept everything, just in case. Love you both. Gee. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like it was full of sand and sawdust. Even in his last months, he had held out hope for Evan. And despite everything, that made me ache. I didn't want to carry this cabin like a trophy. I didn't want it to be the symbol of a win. I wanted it to be what it always was. A refuge, a connection point, a reminder of who we were at our best. Later that afternoon, as I was sweeping off the porch, my phone buzzed. A message from Morgan. Evan's been calling around. Told Mom he's enrolling in some woodworking class. Also apologized to Aunt Nina. That's like big for him. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. That's something, I guess. You gonna let him come up? Maybe. And I meant it. I spent the next few days up at the cabin, fixing what needed fixing and letting the quiet work on me. Grandpa always said the silence out here did something good for your soul. I didn't get it when I was a teenager. Now, I did. It wasn't just quiet. It was clarity. On the third morning, I took out the maintenance log Grandpa had kept in the roll-top desk. He had handwritten notes dating back 20 years, weather reports, chimney cleaning dates, which tools were missing and mysteriously returned. He had listed Evan's name next to a broken fishing pole in 2013 with the note, "Used as sword, rest in peace." I laughed for the first time in days. Then I turned to a blank page and started a new entry. Owner, Sadie Colburn. Date, Sunday, 7:43 a.m. Project, reclaimed the cabin, now starting on the rest. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of wind in the trees and the distant creak of the dock. It was the first full night of sleep I'd had since Grandpa passed. The next morning, I woke up to another text. From Evan. "Can we talk? At the cabin? I'll bring coffee." I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the screen. I thought about what Grandpa would say. "Let him come. Let him try. Just make him work for it," I typed back. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't be late." He actually showed up early. At 8:42 a.m., Evan's car crunched up the gravel driveway, the same way Grandpa's old truck used to. I watched from the porch swing, coffee in hand, nerves in my stomach like bees in a jar. I didn't wave. I didn't stand. He parked, got out slowly, and didn't bring anything with him except 2 large coffees in a cardboard tray and a folded envelope sticking out of his back pocket. He looked different. Not drastically, but deflated, and maybe more honest for it. "Morning," he said. I nodded. "You're early. You said 9, which is not now." He sat on the bottom porch step, careful not to spill the coffee, then held one up toward me without looking back. "Black. No sugar. Thought that was still your thing?" I took it. Still hot. Still smelled like Grandpa's kitchen. "Thanks." We sat there for a while, saying nothing. The birds did all the talking. Finally, he broke the silence. "This place hasn't changed." "It's not supposed to." "I think that's what scared me," he said. "Everything else I've ever touched changes. Sometimes not in good ways." I looked down at him. "That's supposed to be an apology?" He turned his head slightly, met my eyes. "Number that's coming. Just context." I let him talk. Evan sighed, leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've been thinking a lot about Grandpa, about this place, about how I treated both." "Good. He should have." "I think somewhere deep down, I always believed there'd be time," he said. "Time to patch things up with him. Time to come up here and maybe try to understand why he loved it so much. But I waited too long. I stayed wrapped up in my own crap. And when I finally realized I missed my chance, I panicked. I didn't answer. I wanted to hear him say it all. "I lied, Sadie," he said finally. "I lied to you, to Mom, to Dad, to everyone, and not just with the letter. I lied for years. Pretended like this place didn't mean anything, like I didn't care. But I did. I just didn't know how to care the right way. Not until he was gone." I took a sip of coffee. "Why the letter?" He looked down at the dirt like he expected it to answer for him. "Because I was angry, and I felt like if I didn't make a move, it would be too late. You had the memories, the connection, everything. I thought maybe if I had the deed, it would mean I mattered just as much. And now? Now I know what it really meant. That I didn't show up when it counted. That Grandpa saw something in you that I never gave him the chance to see in me. And that's on me. Not you, not him. That sat heavy between us. Finally, I spoke. He left you a letter. You read it? Evan nodded. Yeah, twice. I've got it here if you want to see it. I read it already. What about the money? I used some of it, he admitted. Enrolled in that woodworking course I used to joke about. First class, I nearly cut my finger off. But it felt real. Honest work. Something that doesn't change depending on who's watching. That caught me off guard. It didn't feel like one of his usual performances. He pulled the envelope from his back pocket and handed it to me. This is what I came to give you. No tricks, no lies. I opened it. Inside was a handwritten note in his sloppier print. No flourishes, just words. Sadie, I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope I can earn a place here, if not in your trust, at least on the property line. Not to own it, just to help care for it. The way he did. The way you do. Evan. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I stood up, walked to the old storage shed, and came back with Grandpa's project calendar, the same one I'd updated days earlier. I sat beside him on the step and flipped it open. Here, I said, tapping 3 Saturdays that were marked with red ink. I've got plumbing work, roof resealing, and then dock repairs. You want to prove you mean it? Show up for those. Tools are in the shed. No shortcuts, no cameras. Just work. His mouth twitched like he might smile, but he didn't push it. Got it. I'll be here. You miss one, I added. You're done. This place doesn't tolerate half-hearted. Understood. We sat like that for another few minutes, sipping coffee, listening to the water gently lap against the shore. Then I stood up and offered him a hand. Come on, I'll show you what needs fixing. He looked up, confused. Now. Grandpa didn't believe in waiting. He believed in earning. Evan got up, took my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't pull away. We started with the screen door, the same one I broke years ago. He struggled with the old hinges, cursed under his breath, and cut his thumb trying to get the new latch to line up. I offered him a Band-Aid and didn't say I told you so. When we finished, he looked at it and asked, How'd we do? I gave the door a few test swings. No creaks, no slams, just wind-resistant perfection. He smiled, faint but real. It's a start. After lunch, peanut butter sandwiches and lukewarm lemonade, we sat on the dock with our feet in the water. No big talk, no deep revelations, just air and sky and the sound of ducks somewhere off in the reeds. Eventually, Evan spoke again. I found some of Grandpa's old voicemails from when I ignored his calls. Listened to them last night. What'd they say? He just kept inviting me up here. Every time. Never angry, just hopeful. He looked out at the lake. I didn't deserve that kind of patience. None of us really do, I said. But Grandpa gave it anyway. He was quiet after that, but quieter in the way someone is when they're finally listening. Later that evening, before he left, Evan turned at the base of the steps. Thanks for letting me come up. You showed up, I said. That's the price of admission. He nodded, then paused. You think he knew this would happen? I looked around. The porch, the lake, the swing, the stars just starting to appear above the trees. I think he hoped it wouldn't, I said. But yeah. He was ready. Evan smiled, just a little. He was always 3 steps ahead. 4, if you count the check. He laughed, and then he left. A week later, Evan showed up again. He didn't text ahead, didn't call, just arrived. Early, again, this time with a toolbox instead of coffee. and a pair of gloves that still had the price tag dangling off them. I was out back stacking firewood when I heard the crunch of gravel under his tires. I didn't look up right away. I wanted to see if he'd actually get out of the car, if he'd walk around the house instead of knocking, like Grandpa used to. He did. I heard his boots before I saw him. "You're gonna break your back doing it like that," he said, setting his toolbox down. I didn't smile, just handed him a pair of work gloves. "Show me a better way, then." He did, slowly, clumsily, but he tried. We worked side by side for hours. We didn't talk much. There wasn't time to when you were heaving logs and fighting off splinters, but the silence didn't feel heavy like it used to. It felt companionable. By mid-afternoon, the pile was stacked neatly, rainproof tarp stretched across the top. The kind of job Grandpa would have nodded at in approval. Maybe said, "You're not totally useless after all." We sat on the porch swing after that, both sweaty and sore, the breeze cutting through the quiet like a lullaby. "I found something," Evan said after a while, reaching into his jacket pocket. "In one of Grandpa's old storage bins. I figured you should have it." He handed me a small, worn-out leather notebook. Grandpa's field journal. The one he always carried on fishing trips but never let me read. I opened it slowly. Inside were sketches, rough, sometimes shaky, of the lake, of trees, of birds he'd seen. Scribbled notes about weather patterns, and on the last page, a paragraph, written recently. I recognized the handwriting immediately. If they ever get their heads out of their asses, this place might just save them both. I laughed. Out loud, the kind of laugh that stung behind the eyes. "Sounds like him," I said. "Yeah," Evan agreed. He never did mince words. There was a long pause. The wind shifted. The scent of pine grew stronger. "I used to think the cabin was just a thing," Evan said. "A structure, a building. But now, I think it was his way of keeping us honest, of giving us a place to come back to when we'd lost ourselves." I nodded, slowly. It's not just walls and wood. It's every lesson he ever gave us without saying it directly. Like when he told me to fix the gutter instead of yelling at me for pulling it off with a rope and a sled. Or when he taught me to tie knots for an hour before ever handing me a fishing rod. "He never gave answers," Evan said. "Just jobs, quiet ones. Because he knew the doing would teach more than the talking." We sat there for a long time after that, watching the lake, letting the silence settle again. Later, Evan helped me clear out the attic. We found more of Grandpa's notes, old receipts, old letters, even a few Polaroids of Grandma. He found a wooden carving shaped like a canoe and asked if he could keep it. I let him. No hesitation. That night, we shared dinner at the kitchen table. Nothing fancy, soup from a can and grilled cheese. But it felt better than any restaurant meal, because we earned it. Before bed, I gave Evan something he hadn't asked for, a copy of Grandpa's maintenance calendar with a few blank pages added in the back. He looked at me. "What's this for?" "For you to start your own record. If you're gonna help, you're gonna keep notes. Just like he did." He swallowed hard. "Thanks." I didn't say you're welcome. I just nodded, then added, "Don't screw it up." The weeks went by like that. He showed up every Saturday, sometimes with paint, sometimes with tools, once with a six-pack of the root beer Grandpa used to love. We fixed the dock, repaired the screened-in porch, repainted the shutters the exact same emerald green they'd always been. He didn't try to claim the cabin again, didn't even bring it up. Eventually, I told him what Grandpa had said to me the day he gave me the box. "Don't open it until the moment feels wrong." Evan nodded, quiet. "And now?" "Now it feels like we might finally be getting it right." By early fall, We were nearly finished with the repairs. The cabin looked like it had a few years taken off its age. That weekend, our parents came up. It wasn't my idea. It was Evan's. Said it was time they saw the cabin for what it still was. They were hesitant, at first, especially Dad. But when they stepped onto the porch and saw the repairs, saw the way Evan was moving around like he belonged again, something softened in them. Mom cried when she saw the photo wall. Grandpa, Grandma, us as kids. A few recent ones too. Evan on the dock, me painting the shutters, a selfie Morgan had taken of us covered in sawdust and grinning like idiots. This place looks alive again, Dad said, quiet and emotional in that way only middle-aged dads know how to be. It is, I said, and it's staying that way. After dinner, we all sat on the porch. Evan told a story about Grandpa teaching him to drive a boat and ramming it into the dock. Everyone laughed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't weird. It was exactly what it was supposed to be. Family. As the sun set and the stars began to come out, Evan turned to me. You ever think he planned this? I looked up at the sky. He didn't just leave us a cabin, Evan. He left us a path back to each other. I think that was the plan all along, he said. We were too stupid to see it. Yeah, but not too stupid to fix it. He smiled, then leaned back in the old rocker. And for a second, I swear I could feel Grandpa there with us. In the creak of the chair, in the flicker of the wind, in the way the air felt just a little warmer than it should have been. I whispered into the breeze. We're trying, Grandpa. I promise. And I think, no, I know, he heard me.